Hi, lovelies, and welcome to my channel, Under the Moon with Teal. So I feel really called to start these new sessions. I feel like they'll be like mini story time sessions. I feel like we'll call them Talks with Teal, where we just talk about different things that I'm experiencing on my journey that may help you on yours. So there's been so many different heightened energies going on lately within the collective, especially because we're in like the midst of eclipse season, really in the beginning of it, the beginning stages of transformation. Drop a note in the comments. Have you been experiencing any inner transformation in any area of your life and or noticing areas of your life that are needing to be like released or perhaps relieved of pressure? How many of you are feeling pressure to like change something and know that when this like pressure builds and builds and heightens, like we need to relieve it in terms of like in the form of releasing. So I feel like there's a lot of release work that's being done this month specifically, myself included, lots of deep transformation. And what I always find wild is whatever like the collective is about to go through an experience, I find I often experience it first so that I can then hold space for other people. So there's just there's a lot going on. And it's honestly, I'm curious how you guys are feeling about this as well. It's a transformation I wasn't necessarily expecting. And often when we find ourselves on a spiritual growth journey, we go through many spiritual growth journeys, many spiritual awakenings throughout our lives. And I don't know if you were under the false illusion in the beginning of like, oh, you just have one spiritual awakening and one and done, then you're good, then you're awakened. So that's not really how it works. Like the whole point of incarnating is to grow our soul. And so for our soul's growth, we may experience multiple awakenings throughout our life, and we just simply get better at managing them and learning how to navigate through that like those waters, the emotional turmoil, the experiences that need to be released, the weight of our past, the weight of perhaps our ancestors, our lineage, whatever needs to come up to the surface to be released. And it's essentially like peeling back layers of the onion and coming back home to who we truly are, right? So throughout our lives, we experience people, places, or things, circumstances, events that change us. And oftentimes people will view this as like, literally imagine if you had an empty backpack and each time you have an experience or an event in your life that you place a rock in that backpack. And each time like you continue to have new events, more rocks go in the backpack. And so over time the backpack gets really heavy and we need to release it, right? And so there's a difference between when we have an experience or an event in our life and allowing ourselves to fully feel into the event or experience, allow it to transform what we need to transform, but not holding on to it with resentment, not holding on to it as like a heavy weight. And there's like the need to like, I feel like bring awareness into this specifically within the collective of learning how to release and let go. I've personally found this to be one of the hardest lessons and experiences is our humans can really hold on to a person, really hold on to a place or a situation or an event because there's part of you that self identifies with it, or there's part of you that is attached to that specific event. And so it's really important to do the deep inner work to realize where is this attachment stemming from, and why have I let it define my life or my existence to this point in time, and not from a space or place of shame, but just simply bringing awareness into what's going on within yourself, within your body, your being, and what you're experiencing on your journey. So I'm hearing as well, it's like repeated patterns. So, what repeated patterns have been showing up for you, coming up to the surface that need to be released? I know personally for me, it was about like 1.5 weeks before eclipse season started. There was a pattern from my past that came up. And I was so shocked because I really did think that like I was done with that pattern. Like that was a pattern from my 20s. We're not doing that anymore. And it was just this really interesting little like peeking its head out, being like, oh, this is one last chance at this pattern. Are you sure that you've released it? And when it was happening, I was like, is this a test or is this me simply trying to like put the past on this new situation? Yeah, it was definitely a test, but that's fine because here's the thing is we'll be tested until we officially learn the lesson. And sometimes it just takes like however many tests it's going to take for you to learn the lesson. That being said, if you're being tested by any patterns or situations, people, places, or things from the past, don't fret. We all are to a certain degree. And it's just a matter of have you fully embodied, integrated, and learned the lessons that you need to so that you can ascend with wherever you're at on your journey. All right. So that all being said, it's so interesting because when I started this session, I had a feeling of what I thought I was going to share, but then as the session continued, I feel like it always is whatever it's supposed to be, right? And here we are. So that being said, I did feel called to share like what I've currently been experiencing on my journey recently, and that's been working with inside the self. So this is something that most people actively avoid because most of the time, most of our lives we spend not focusing on ourselves. We spend life focusing on things external to ourselves. For example, our jobs, where we're living, the people in our lives, our attention is typically focused outside of the self, which is why a lot of people avoid the self because if you spend decades of ignoring emotions within your being or really just not getting to know yourself or you didn't perhaps properly process like past pain, then you hold that within the system or body. So then people want to avoid going inwards because then it brings up uncomfortable emotions. And a lot of people don't have the tools to know how to regulate or manage that. So, that all being said, something that's been coming up for me recently that's been so interesting and something that I talk about quite a bit is the importance of living life by your value system. And what's interesting is like what's been coming through for me is needing to be the living embodiment of my own values internally. And if I'm an embodiment of those values internally, then the external doesn't really matter, which is very interesting. So, for example, one of my main value systems is adventure and freedom. Like that is like one of my top values. It's really important for me. And when we get clear on what our values are, it's easy to make decisions that are in alignment with where we're meant to go in life. Because when you're clear on your values, when situations present themselves throughout the day, making decisions against your main values will only cause unhappiness. So, to create happiness, make decisions in alignment with your value system. I feel like let me know in the comments as well if you guys want me to I could do a whole session and topic just on creating and getting clear define values to help you live your life by. It is something that I did in Bali that was like transformational for me. And it also helps you to make aligned choices with who you keep in your life, the jobs that you have, what you do on the day-to-day basis. It really is important to get very, very crystal clear on your values. So that all being said, adventure, freedom, main values for me, which is why I've spent most of the last few years living outside the country and exploring new places is very important for me. And so what I've come to recently after being on this beautiful trip to Europe and then coming back to the US is feeling like the expansiveness that I achieve when I am traveling is one of the reasons I love traveling to new places and spaces. And I felt not necessarily like a constricted energy coming back to the US, but it's almost like this newfound sense of expansion, which I feel like new levels of this every time that I travel. So this newfound level of expansion coming back to previous places that feel less expansive, it felt like almost like a fish out of water. Like, I'm not supposed to be here. Why am I here in this physical location? This is awful. There's not, it's like the newness, the expansiveness isn't there. And that's a big struggle for me. And so then initially, it's like the first human response is like, okay, leave this space, go back to the expansive energy of traveling to new spaces and places. But this being said, side note, a big main priority for me has growing roots and building a foundation. So it's balancing that need within my physical body being and then also balancing that with my values of freedom and adventure. So what has been coming through around all of this has been needing to cultivate. It's like you can have the freedom, you can have the energy of freedom and adventure within your body and being regardless of where you are in the world. So when we're looking to be like I have to be in this specific place to be connected into this energy or feeling, that's actually just a belief system. So if we believe that it's true, then it is, right? So it started to be brought into my awareness, and my guides were very clear about the feeling and energy of expansiveness that you get through freedom and adventure, you actually can carry that with you anywhere that you are. So even if you're in a place where you're very familiar with the surroundings, you've been to all the nature spots, you've been to all the different places, locations, you can still have adventures there. It doesn't necessarily have to be associated with the new space or place, but it's like connecting into the energy of adventure. So whether or not this is a value that aligns for you, you can use this in any other aspect of your life. Something else as well that's been coming through with this is the feeling of home. So I've been trying to find and curate where does this feeling of home need to be? Where do I need to feel at home? And when we search the world for where we find like where we think home may be, the key actually is turning inwards to ourselves. And when we can curate the feeling of home within the heart space, we can feel at home anywhere. So this has been a big epiphany for me that's happened the past week as well. And both of these different, but similar in the sense of both the adventure epiphany and also the feeling and sensation of home. Both of these have come to me in a space of like, essentially, we create the feelings inside of ourselves, and it is independent from our physical location. So there's a difference between it's like the human desire of wanting to be in different, places or traveling as an example, and it's important to fulfill that need to a certain degree, but it is if anything more important to learn how to cultivate these feelings with inside the body and to learn how to cultivate basically any desire that we want, it starts within the self. And desire also stems from lack, and we don't want to operate from lack. So it's like whatever desire we have, we can meet it within ourselves. So if you're desiring love external to the self, it is stemming from not having enough love within the self, right? So it all comes back to ourselves. And it's just so interesting because it's like anytime we're looking external in our lives for something, whatever it is, right? At the end of the day, it's, like, super easy. It just is coming home to ourselves and feeling and filling up that sensation within ourselves, which is so interesting. So I've currently been learning that with home. Where is home in the world? It's within the self. Who else is feeling this? Same thing as, like, I need adventure. Need to be exploring new places, embodying the energy of adventure, and then struggling when I'm in a space and place that is familiar because it's not the adventure vibes. And it's like, wait, I can actually embody the energy and frequency of adventure. And I already am. And it's just a matter of perspective shifting. And it's when we seek things outside of ourselves, it's simply showing us what we need to focus on inside the self. So, this all being said, I hope this was helpful for you today. And I'm so curious if you're new to my channel, if this resonated with you, feel free to drop a note in the comments below. And let me know if you enjoyed these talks with Teal. They're definitely spur of the moment, whatever channel needs to come through and whatever I feel called that I'm going through and sharing on my journey. And yeah, keep in mind this month we're going to have a lot of heightened energies, especially around eclipse season. There's a lot of rebirth energy transformation. So be easy and kind with yourself. Take things easy, take things slowly, and just be mindful of what's coming up. Allow yourself time and space to process it and know that you are never alone. If you feel called to join my online spiritual growth community as well, we'll be doing an in-depth tea time, story time session next week. And I'd love to see you there. And also be sure to hit the like button, comment below, and follow for more. Until next time.